Welcome to Earth's Mightiest Weirdos special episode, Spider Sunday. Alex from Comics and Cinema is joining us throughout the night, amongst many other guests throughout the night. Alex, how are you doing this evening?
Doing absolutely amazing, you could say.
Ooh, you could say that. I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. All right, I am going to play it right off the bat. We are going to be talking spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home. We will be talking Spider-Man No Way Home spoilers throughout the night, almost at a breakneck speed as fast as the film progressed, because we want to fit in as much topic as we can throughout the night. Mark's here. He says, who's ready to talk some Spider-Man? Justin said he just got home from seeing it again. The rewatchability of this movie is off the charts. Alex, I saw it twice on Thursday, twice on Friday. How many times have you seen the movie at this point?
3 for me. Saw Thursday night, Friday morning, and Saturday afternoon.
Anthony with the call out to United We Fan is Spider-Man, the one with the little wizard boy. Thank you so much for listening, Anthony, and thank you so much for watching. I cannot wait to do this. We will get into the show here momentarily, but first want to remind you of our giveaways we have going on throughout the night. So we will get into those, and they will be dispersed. I will not tell you when they are. We would like you to tune in for the entire time. One giveaway, the grand prize of the night, will be the last one of the three. I will share that. That is your own version of this exact same shirt. I have discovered that it does come in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, if you would rather have one of those. There is not a version that has all three of them in the same shirt, or else it would have already been on order for myself. We are also giving away this Spider-Man comics pin and a limited release Disney Parks Spider-Man No Way Home pin as well. So more to come on those giveaways in a little bit. We have several of our trusty weirdos in the comments. Many are going to join us throughout the night, but we have one trusty weirdo who has to join us every single time because it's the world according to Jax. Hello, Jax.
Hi, Dad.
How are you?
Good.
Good. What did you think of the movie?
I really liked it.
You really liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was just okay, don't you think?
Oh, it was amazing.
All right. It was amazing. So we're going to go Cold Stone style with everybody that joins us tonight. Did you like it? Did you love it? Or is it more than love and you got to have it?
I've got to have it.
You've got to have it. It was pretty great, right?
Yeah.
We're going to ask all of our guests tonight what their Mount Rushmore of moments is from the film. So I need to know, Jackson, what is your Mount Rushmore of moments from Spider-Man No Way Home? And again, we are talking spoilers. If you have not seen the movie and do not want to be spoiled, please do not watch this film if you do not want to, or this stream if you do not want to be spoiled. Boomer says Venom is life. Oh, I can't wait to talk about that. Go ahead, Jax. Your Mount Rushmore of moments.
Number one was in the mirror dimension when Peter 1 used his webs to outsmart Doctor Strange.
And he said, "You know what's better than magic?
Math.
That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
You love math, so that was pretty cool for you. What about number two?
I liked when Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield showed up, and Ned's grandma spoke in a different language, and Ned said he wants them. It was just when Tobey Maguire. I mean, not Tobey Maguire. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man showed up, and he didn't want to crawl on the ceiling, but when Ned's grandma asked him to clean up the cobwebs, he did it immediately and cleaned it up.
When you have a happy Lola, you have a happy life, right?
Yeah.
All right. I love that Andrew Garfield calls her Lola. We're going to talk about that. Number three.
Number three was when in the lab scene when Ned asked Andrew Garfield if he had a best friend, and he said
asked Toby if he had a best friend. Yeah.
Toby. It was Toby. Yeah.
Yep.
And he said he died in his arms after trying to kill him, and then after a while, and then after a little bit, Ned said that he told Peter 1 that he would never turn into a supervillain and try to kill him.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about that with our first guest, Sarah, because we're worried what that might mean. But then what did Andrew do when Ned said they won't turn into a supervillain?
He patted his back.
He patted him on the back and was very proud of him, wasn't he? I thought that was great. And number 4.
Number 4 was when Peter 1 was trying to save MJ and he got knocked out of the way by Green Goblin. And the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man noticed he didn't want anyone else to lose their girlfriend, and so he went down and saved MJ. That was pretty cool.
Why was that so cool?
It was because it was a big comeback for the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Massive deal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then Andrew Garfield cried.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty sad, huh? But pretty cool at the same time.
Yeah.
Super great moment. So you didn't like the movie though?
I did.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. We're gonna go see it again during Christmas break many times, huh?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Welcome, Dad.
See ya. He covered a lot of good stuff. It's just, Alex, I gotta hear it. Cold Stone style, Tim McGraw style. I like it. I love it. Gotta have it. I want some more of it. Alex, where does this stand on your scale?
Yeah, I gotta have it. I want some more of it. I'm buying the whole I need my own Cold Stone franchise after seeing this movie. It's just incredible.
Oh man, it's just so. We did a 3.5 hour episode of Comics and Cinema on the Spider-Man saga. Talked very little Tom Holland. I appreciate the shout out to United We Fan, because we did talk Tom Holland on there as well. We talked a lot about the Tobey Maguire films and the Andrew Garfield films. The Andrew Garfield films are much better than I remember them being. Alex, you and I, neither of us were very fair to Andrew Garfield when his films were out, and I think it's safe to say that he's getting his due. All we said on that one is we wanted to love this film. I did not expect to love this film as much as I love this film.
Yeah, there was a lot kind of going into it where it almost felt like we had to work overtime to kind of dampen our expectations because of all the leaks, all the talks, the really weird sort of posters. Like everything about it was just kind of like, are they hiding things from us? Like, with the trailer, they had things cut out. So I was like, what are they trying to do? And so it almost made it a little less in that regard. And I loved that, because then when you got in, it was like, yeah, I'm so happy that we didn't know half of these things, and all these other surprises that popped up, and just the fact that they were able to memorialize and honor every single Spider-Man movie out there. And it's a big message too, I think, and we'll probably talk about this at some point, some themes around second chances, and specifically the second chance of Sony, because I think this was their big moment to show that they're a cooperative company that's willing to let people who are better at making movies than them help them do so. And you can see what happens when those differences are put aside.
Yes, and Kevin Feige, Amy Pascal seem to be on a good working relationship right now as well. So that really helps. But Alex, before we welcome in our first guest in about 5 minutes from now, I need to know what your Mount Rushmore of moments is. Now, I know how difficult this is. I put every scene in my head that I thought was worthy of a Mount Rushmore. I ended up with 17 before narrowing it down to 4. Yeah. So please let me know what your 4 moments are.
I'm honored that I'm going to be sharing 50% of my moments with Jax. I think that's really cool. My first one, these are in no order. And again, I did struggle. There's other ones I wanted to put on here too, but for the sake of conversation, and I think because yours are opposite of mine. First one is Portals. Last night, and I don't know if I'm ashamed to say this, but I was thinking, is this a better Portals scene than our other Portals scene? Because, the one is honoring the last 10 years of the MCU. The other one is honoring the last 20 years of Spider-Man. So again, could be a cool discussion, but the Portals scene when they show up, both of them, was just incredible. I cried. Toby stopping Peter. You got a second chance there of him getting to be Uncle Ben for Peter when he's about to kill Norman. Loved that scene. And then also same for Andrew getting his second chance for saving MJ. That was incredible. And then my final one was Peter saying goodbye to his friends, which I was frustrated on my first watch, but on the second watch, it really stuck out to me because I was like, I think he knows in that moment that he's not going to try. I mean, he still tries to go, but it's like, that's when he's not going to, he's got a whole brand new start now. He's got a brand new day.
Yeah, why couldn't he just stand there and say, "Hey, I'm Peter"?
That's what I said. And so I'm like, you know what? It must have been because subconsciously his Parker luck was showing up and saying, like, no, you need to, leave them be.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I man, I love this movie. I love this movie. I am confident in assigning it the number one spot in a live action Spider-Man sense. I still don't know if I like it more than Spider-Verse. I'm going to be honest. Spider-Verse is a near perfect film for me. This came pretty dang close. They brought in the best of every single character, and they didn't bring any of the negative energy, with the exception of the negative energy that they meant to bring by having Andrew and Toby have the conversation of what all this negative talk. I can't handle it. Like, you're amazing. Like, and just everything they brought in. This movie was meta in the best of ways, and they brought in so many funny jokes, and I love it so much. So my first Mount Rushmore moment, I'm simply going sequentially through the film. I knew you were going to have the portal scene, so I actually didn't keep it. I knew I was going to get off on a technicality there, so that's going to work out good for me. For me, the first one has absolutely nothing. Well, it has something to do with Spider-Man because he was his lawyer, but Matt Murdock being a very good lawyer and catching that brick. Oh, man. Like, my first theater erupted when we saw Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock, and we got just the right amount of him, and it just... The arrival of Daredevil into the MCU is fantastic. We don't know where he's going to pop up next, but now he's here, and now we can move on with it. My next one is going to be the lab, just the entire lab scene overall, by the review or the knowledge that Peter 2 actually ended up with MJ and that they're making it work. I think that's fantastic. The line of, you're going to put on a costume, or you can put on a suit, or are you just going to go out as a cool youth pastor? I thought that was great. The point when, hey, Peter, and they all point at each other, and Ned just can't get over it. Peter Parker, again, that doesn't help. And then, of course, the web conversation we knew that had to happen of, what are you talking about, web shooters? That came out of you. And then when it leads into, like, does it come out of anywhere else? Like, it's great. And then my number 3 is going to be the team up jumping off of the scaffolding when they say, I was part of a team. I'm not going to brag, or I don't mean to brag, but I'm gonna, like, I was part of the Avengers. The Avengers? That's so great. What is that? Like, oh, you were in a band, man. That's so cool. And then they jump off the scaffolding and they use their webs to swing each other around. And then the Andrew Garfield saving MJ moment. Absolutely. Like, that Gwen Stacy scene is so heartbreaking, and he got his moment. He's been thinking about it for years. Toby got his moment to save Dr. Osborn that he's been thinking about for years. The whole thing just came full circle, and I love it so much. We're going to bring in our very first guest. She's going to help us talk about the big 3, not those big 3, the big 3 of Peter 1, MJ, and Ned, the big 3 from the Homecoming trilogy. But first and foremost, Sarah, welcome to the show. Sarah, do you like it? Do you love it? Or do you gotta have it?
Hello, everybody. I gotta have it. Gotta have more of it any way I can get it. Yes.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Well, Sarah, what is your Mount Rushmore of scenes from this film?
I mean, it's gonna be hard to differentiate mine from everyone else's, I think. But Aunt May was one of mine, just because not only it was propelling his decisions, like, kind of the driving force behind why he was doing what he was doing. But she got the big line. I thought it was cool to see Aunt May say, with great power comes great responsibility. I love that she was on her feet when she said it.
Alex, what was the actual line?
With great power, there must also come great responsibility. And if you give me 1 second, I'll grab the actual comic panel and put it up to the camera. While you guys are talking, you can continue.
Go ahead.
And I love Marissa Tomei. I'm going to be really bummed about seeing her not seeing her in the MCU anymore. So, yeah. Aunt May, the Peter portals, y'all already touched on that. Andrew Garfield getting to catch MJ, getting to get some closure there, get some healing from that horrible moment in his own universe. And then the Band-Aid at the end, MJ's Band-Aid. It was a moment, I think, for Peter when he decided to be selfless again. But he saw the Band-Aid on MJ's forehead, and you could see him make the decision in his mind to not tell her who he was because he didn't want to hurt them anymore. Because he feels responsible, I think, for it. So he made the decision to ultimately, I keep saying selfless, but that's Peter Parker.
Well, let's stick right there talking about MJ. I think there was something different, and it must be their real world relationship. I don't know what it was, but there was something different about that relationship between MJ and Peter in this movie. Yep. And it was genuinely heart touching throughout the film and how understanding they were of each other. And that really stood out to me. How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, it was very sweet and very genuine. And I think you're right. I think it's probably their real world relationship playing through a little bit. But yes, it was very believable. Especially the Band-Aid scene. You can see how much Tom loves Zendaya, in that he doesn't want to cause her any pain. And I think that plays through with Peter and MJ. And that's why, we believe it.
Alex, how about you? Did anything there between their relationship and just how loving it seemed to be? It was easily to believe it more than just a high school fling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something to be said too about kind of the evolution of MJ and Peter over the last 3 movies, and specifically MJ. I know Zendaya talked about that in one of her interviews as well, where, in the first movie, she talks about, I don't have any friends. She's eating alone at lunch. And by the end of this movie, she has, in a way, 2 best friends, and they're all doing everything together, and it's super sweet. And, you don't see a lot of that from the other Spider-Man movies too, of like an MJ or a romantic person being the way they are to Peter, where she's constantly trying to help him. And she says, I want to be included. But she's not mad about it. And like, she has a very different performance than the other romantic involvements that Peter has in the other films. Here's that panel as well. Right.
And that is Ben Parker, I would assume, in that panel, correct?
Well, it's funny in the comic. I don't think it's ever said, unless it says there, and I know that's very blurry. But I think that's one of the bits. Is like I don't think anyone ever says it. It says it there because I tried to find it. The intro comic is very short before you get the Amazing Fantasy issue before the Spider-Man series.
Okay. I'm gonna jump in real quick during Sarah's segment. We are going to give our very first pin away.
Ooh.
So it is the Amazing Spider-Man comics pin. You can enter the chat as many times as you would like to. The answer I would like to hear, you can spam the chat, give the answer as many times as you want, but I want to hear everybody's favorite film. You don't have to call it Spider-Man unless it is, of course, named Spider-Man. You can just say Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. Any of the Spider-Man live action films, which one is your favorite? Enter the comments as much time as possible. Alex will give us a random number to be able to select the winner of that here at the end. You talked about 2 best friends, and I'm going to go to Sarah on this. It really is. I love I'm a glass half full kind of gal. I'm a big people person. But then we get them sitting on top of the roof of the school, and Ned says, "This could be us." And MJ goes, "Yeah, minus the Frisbee and the smiling." But it seemed like Ned was not a third wheel within this relationship, and MJ worked really hard to include him. Sarah, what about Ned and the involvement of everything he had going on there?
I love Ned. His Peter's guy in the chair. I love Ned. I love Jacob. I love the actor Jacob Batalon. I want more of all of them in the MCU, but I'm particularly excited about Ned's way forward here with the character, particularly with some of the foreshadowing we may have gotten, if that's what it was. But the fact that he's magic now and he's got, I love him. He has a very fun, lovable energy about him. So I'm excited about his character.
With the amount of work going on in this film, I was fine with some of the convenient plot points, and it worked for me. Are you cool with Ned being a sorcerer?
Yeah, I mean, I just want more Ned. I don't want Ned to be gone yet.
That's fair. Alex, how about you?
Yeah, I think you almost had to do something like that. I feel like I saw a comment about it somewhere, and I never was anti-Ned, but Ned always just kind of felt like the hanging on Peter's back in a sense, where it was like it was cool that he was the guy in the chair, but it was like, I mean, and I guess he did save him in that first movie, but even in the second one, it was more about he was doing other things, and so it got to a point where it's like, what else can Ned do? Like we got to see him as the guy in the chair, and now it's kind of like he's just a friend, but this gives him a little more of a layer to where you could develop him more if you wanted in future films.
Sarah, you referenced the moment where he stares Peter one in the eye and says, "I promise I will never become a supervillain and try to kill you." Why did that make you a little bit nervous?
Ned Leeds in the comics is he has a villain arc that I hope our Ned Leeds doesn't have to go through. But yeah, in the comics he's a hobgoblin. So
I had said that I thought it was coming as the sixth of the Sinister Six in this film, so I was completely fine with that not happening.
Yes, yeah, that would have broken my heart.
All right. Well, Sarah, anything else on Ned and Peter and MJ's, the big three, their relationship within this film you want to touch on before we get you out of here?
No, I love the three of them. I'm so hurt for Peter. I hope that he's able to find some camaraderie going forward. I know it'll never be the same for him, but I hope he's able to find more friendships moving forward.
Well, this breakneck speed of this podcast, of this film, did no favors to Sarah joining us on Earth's Mightiest Weirdos tonight. If you want more of Sarah talking Earth's Mightiest Weirdos, you can tune into Comics and Cinema spoiler podcast of Spider-Man No Way Home, starring the two on the screen with me right now. 2.5 hours, deep dive conversation of Spider-Man No Way Home. That's still not enough for Sarah, you say? Okay. How about tomorrow night at 8:30, where we can talk Kingpin? Or nope, I'm not going to say it. I'm sorry. We're going to talk Hawkeye. And we're going to talk all about the 5th episode of Hawkeye and how good that episode was. It's hard to even remember that episode even exists at this point. But Sarah and I will have, along with David and Kara, we'll have a nice conversation about Yelena and the macaroni. Sarah, before you get out of here, pick a number between 1 and 36.
Oh, gosh. 25.
25. We will now very soon figure out who our winner of this pin will be with Sarah's choice of number 25. Mark will let us know there. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Sarah.
Bye.
Alex, I did get a chance to finish that spoiler podcast that you and Sarah had done. Fantastic stuff. So if we are going at a different pace than you would like us to go tonight, Alex and Sarah do it very differently than what we're doing tonight. But I like what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep that format going. And Alex, we're going to welcome in Miss Jalen.
Whoa! What's up, Jalen?
Just on Earth's Mightiest Weirdos last week, I believe, talking Hawkeye. Is that right, Jalen?
Yep, last week.
Perfect. Well, Jalen, do you like it? Was it just okay? Or where do you stand on this film?
I'm like everyone else so far. Gotta have more. I wish it was streaming somewhere right now so I could just keep watching it like all day long.
Or you could just do what Alex and I did and just not. I spent 10 of 29 total hours in a movie theater at one point this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a big Christmas break coming up, so maybe just every day I'll just go to the theater and just watch it again.
Congratulations to Justin Grant, who is the winner of our first giveaway. I would assume he said his favorite film was Spider-Man No Way Home because that was 90% of the comments that were coming in. Kara said Homecoming, a few into the Spider-Verse. Kara will be coming on later on to discuss kind of her plan as well. So, well, let's get into it. Jalen, what were your Mount Rushmore 4 favorite moments of Spider-Man No Way Home?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to pick a top 4 because there's so many good moments. A lot of mine are repeaters that have been said, but that's just because they're such great scenes.
Yeah.
So my first one is Andrew catching MJ. Just that my theater erupted at that scene. And just his performance in just that few seconds was just perfection. My second one is when the 3 Spider-Men hug at the end. I thought that was just so heartwarming, and it gave me goosebumps because I'm like, oh, but now
Andrew's face, like, he just got such the biggest smile on his face. He's such a goober, and I love him.
He got his brothers, so I love that hug. And then my third one is again, Ned, his reaction to Toby saying his best friend died in his arms after he tried to kill him. Just his whole like awkwardness and like not wanting to be around Peter One, like trying to keep his distance. It was just hilarious. And then my fourth one was after Andrew comes through the portal and MJ just keeps throwing bread at him. No. It was so funny. Like, he's like, stop it. And she's like, no, it just keeps throwing it. And it was so funny. So those are my top 4, but ask me tomorrow and it could change because
I have the tingle thing. I just don't have it for bread.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was so good. Unfortunately, Jalen, you are helping us talk about one of the most difficult parts of this film, and in just one of the characters that has been essential to the Spider-Man home trilogy, and that's Aunt May. But I want to start with her fling and the concerns that she has with Happy not having any boundaries. Are you sad for Happy?
I am. It's like he can't catch a break, not like things aren't going well for Happy. He loses his best friend and then he gets a girlfriend and then she breaks up with him and then he loses the girlfriend. And then, I mean, it was funny how they did it. Like they played it off for laughs, but you could see the heartbreak in Happy's face. He just wants to be with Aunt May all the time. Who could blame him? I'd want to be with Aunt May all the time.
So, Alex, I want to ask you this. They went straight for the comedy teenage sex joke. Did that work for you?
I didn't even take it as that. So it did in that sense. Like it didn't feel not tasteful. It was very tasteful in that sense. I mean, it was funny because when they're approaching the door, you hear them like screaming things. And obviously you could get stuff from that. But like you as a viewer know what they're talking about. Like, there's nothing there behind the door. And then when they open it and it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, MJ, nice to meet you. Like,
she fixes her hair.
I thought it played off really well. I think the best part of that whole thing, though, was when he's like, classic Peter trying to take it off of him, and he's like shutting all the blinds, but he goes, I just want to talk to you guys about your relationship. And it was like, Peter, there's so much more going on, but he just immediately is trying to change the subject. I thought that was great.
Oh man, yeah, like next time you watch it, just listen to only what they're saying, because he's like, I don't know what to do, and it's so funny. All right, Jalen, well, we talked about Happy at the very end of the film does not remember Peter Parker, but they do remember Spider-Man. So that's pretty interesting. But Happy can't seem to catch a break, and just Happy talking about Tony Stark and being reassured by a teenager that everything's going to be okay. And that what Tony stood for actually means something. Was there anything there with Happy before we move on to talking about Aunt May?
I mean, I was hoping he would remember Peter. Like I was hoping they would like look at each other and then something would click where he'd be like, I feel like I know you from somewhere. Like I was hoping we would get something out of that, but hopefully he comes back and Happy can get his happy ending. Happy needs a happy ending.
Man, Happy needs to catch a break. Yes. Let's get into it. Alex, we'll go to you first. Tom Holland acted his absolute butt off in this scene between he and Marissa Tomei's Aunt May when she gives us the comics panel that you were talking about earlier. It was up there with I don't want to go, Mr. Stark. Like it was big time stuff.
Yeah. I think the part that even got me the most too was when he was like, come on, May, what are you doing? Like after she had died. And I was like, no one would say that, but he's just so stricken and so broken that he's just like, doesn't even know what to say. And he's like, and then he looks up and Happy's right there. And it was absolutely heartbreaking. The emotion that he shows, he does throughout the whole movie. Like he just these little ticks in his cheekbones and the way his eyes are, he conveys so much emotion through so very little. And even beyond all the, the damage on his face with the blood and the bruises, you can still tell how just wrecked he is from this. And it really was absolutely, I mean, I'll say this, he's maybe not with Andrew, but he's definitely a better crier than Toby is. So I'll give him that.
Super Tim is here. He says, I'm very confused about how the forgetting spell works. We'll talk about that with our next guest as well. David's going to be helping us talk about Doc Ock and Doctor Strange. Jalen, what about you? You said we don't want to spend too much time on this scene because we don't want to lose you to tears. But
this scene, I'm trying not to.
This scene is powerful.
And Tom's performance is what makes it. Like, if it wasn't him and she just, if he wasn't there and they just showed her dying, like, and the camera pans away, like, I don't think it would have been as emotional as what it is with Tom's performance. He is just so good, and it's so heartbreaking, and you just feel his pain in it. And I wasn't expecting Aunt May to die, so it wrecked me, and I was basically crying throughout the rest of the movie after that because I just could not get over it. He was so good in it.
It was good. It was really, really good. And then when Happy shows up and tells Peter to run, you got to run, and Tom grabs her and kisses her forehead and says, I'm sorry. Like, it is. And then they end it on quite the powerful visual of a tear running down the side of running down the side of her cheek. And it was Marissa Tomei, absolutely so fantastic. And this is where people are talking about how this trilogy was Spider-Man's origin. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in the future with Marvel or Sony, but having this particular spell and everything, Spider-Man's origin being something we've never seen before on screen. Alex, I would assume somewhere in the comics we've had the death of Aunt May. I don't know if we've had it in this similar format, but it was tough to watch.
Yeah, it's random too. I mean, that's one of the characters that's like the hardest to kill. I know we talked about that in the Spider-Man saga too, where it's like Aunt May just can't die, but the times that she does die, it's very devastating, and like they always bring her back in some form or fashion. But it's never easy. I mean, she's just, especially Marissa Tomei too, because it's like she's not a frail old woman. And so I think Sarah mentioned that on our episode of just how cool it was that she was able to deliver that line while standing. That she was up on her feet and it looked like she was okay while she delivered it and then fell, which to me is way more impactful.
I think one part I loved was when, before she dies and before she gets hit with Goblin's hoverboard or thing, whatever, she's not running. She's standing up to the Goblin. Like, she's trying to protect Peter, even though she knows Peter's a superhero and has these superpowers. What can she do against a supervillain? But she's playing that mom role and protecting her kid. And I thought that was so powerful.
It's child endangerment.
Yeah, that guy gets to go.
That guy.
With all due respect, and I mean that as insincerely as I can, she was just when she rips that thing and then just holds it down like she's like so a superhero. Powerful. Yeah, it was like, and I was like, May, you just need to leave. You need to get out of here.
He's yelling at her to run, and she's like, no, I'll kick some butt if I have to.
One last thing here. Matt Murdock seems to want to represent people he knows to be innocent. I don't know if he was offering to assist Happy Hogan, because I think he knew Happy was not exactly innocent, but Happy's going to need a really good lawyer. I don't know how that's going to play out. It's going to be very, very interesting.
Yes.
There's another lawyer out there that is about to get some screen time that maybe he could use.
She's green and she's 6'7". Oh, Jalen, thank you so much for joining us. You kept it together. I really appreciate you.
I'll cry off screen. So thank you.
Thanks, Jalen.
Bye, Jalen.
All right, we are going to welcome in our next guest, and that is from the Modern Gods podcast, Mr. David Rosen, most famously of the Earth's Mightiest Weirdos comment thread, man, throwing everything out to us about Hawkeye's wife more than anything. David, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, what's up, David?
David's here to join us. He's actually going to be here for 2 character discussions. So we're going to get into the first one of a home trilogy, not necessarily returning character, but an MCU returning character in Dr. Stephen Strange. So let's get right into it. We find out that the blizzard within the sanctum is simply because one of the gateways got left open because somebody is a sorcerer supreme and doesn't have time to maintain the sanctum anymore. David, are you fine with Wong being the sorcerer supreme even on a technicality?
I'm fine with it for now. I think it eventually has to go back to Steven.
Steven never officially had it though, did he?
I don't think
Maybe
so.
he did. Maybe he did and they just never told us.
I don't think so. There was something at the end. I can't remember exactly what scene it was that made me think maybe he had it for a little bit. But I also think it gives a little bit more weight to the end credit scene of Shang-Chi and why it was Wong talking to Shang-Chi and Katie and Bruce and Carol and not Doctor Strange. So that was interesting. I think it will come time, obviously, for him to bear that title in proper form and proper matter.
Yeah, we don't know where that's going to be, but Wong being the new MCU's new Coulson, like I'm here for it. Alex, did you catch Doctor Strange landing on the snow and then slipping right away?
Yeah, that was great. And you know what I didn't realize too, as I was thinking about it later on, is that Kevin Feige loves Doctor Strange, and obviously he loves Spider-Man too, and they're both created, obviously Stan Lee, but also by Steve Ditko. And so I think it's really cool that the final film of this trilogy that Kevin Feige got to put Doctor Strange and Spider-Man in a more close role like this together. I think it's just really cool in terms of honoring those legacies.
And there are 2 Steve Ditko graffiti callouts in the film, at least that I know of. One is on the roof when Peter and MJ are up there of the school. Right on the back wall, it says Ditko. And then it is again in graffiti on the Feast truck after they leave Feast and head back to the Sanctum.
And I think he's the only other hero to at least get a name drop in the original series.
That's right.
And it's twice. Is that correct, Alex?
Well, you get the Bleecker Street call out, and then you got the actual Doctor Strange call out. Yeah.
Doc, when they're naming the name Doc Ock. Yeah, Doctor Strange, but that's taken. Absolutely. Well, Alex or David, your background says no spoilers, but we're going to talk spoilers. Let's get into it a little bit. David, what did you make of Doctor Strange and his curious nature that we saw in the trailers was absolutely not at all the same character that we got in this film?
Right. I mean, I've been saying this since that trailer dropped. What you think we're getting is not what we're getting. There's something missing. There's something to be explained. I love that. First of all, I think one of the criticisms coming into this movie was that, oh, great, Peter is going to be mentored again by another, adult male figure. And I do not think that is the case at all. Doctor Strange was not playing a mentor role in this movie. He was
just trying to be the cool uncle, is kind of what it felt like to me.
Right. And also, I think it was cool that his choice to help Peter was not filled by ego or by recklessness, as the trailer made it seem, but the fact that he had sympathy for Peter. He just wanted to help him out. He even says to Wong, come on, hasn't he been through enough? And also the fact that apparently this spell is not that big of a deal in the world of sorcery. He's like, well, we've done this before. We've done more with less. Or we've so it was going for a stroll in the park, sort of.
Do you remember the whatever party at Kamertage? No, exactly. Yeah, full moon party.
So, I know some people were complaining about the ethics or Doctor Strange's morality of allowing or doing this spell to allow this to go forward. I think it worked as best as it could. Stephen Strange, I think, has not always made the best decisions, but at least this works in this context, in this movie. It also shows that he's been up to a lot more than what we've seen. Which I think is cool because eventually I'm assuming he's going to become the Sorcerer Supreme, but we haven't seen that much of him. So even if we get some dialogue about what he's been up to off screen, that works for me.
Super Tim says that Strange has an interesting arc on Multiverse of Madness, talking about not always making the right decisions. He doesn't always make the right decisions in episode 4 of What If either, and that seems to have some implications in Multiverse of Madness, or at least tipped us off a little bit. Alex, everything with Doctor Strange, did he act recklessly to you?
No, not at all. I think, and especially they really hammered it home too, like you said, when he says, oh, like we could just make people forget versus turning back time, sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, he does it in the comics, and it's almost identical in the comics too. And it wasn't that much work for him to do that either. So, no, I don't. And I think, if anything, I mean, I don't know, maybe we get into it at some point, but I would say the most reckless person in this movie, in a sense, was Aunt May. But comparatively, I don't think Doctor Strange was doing anything wrong. He was just trying to be nice.
I think if he's guilty of one thing, it's not explaining the word of the meaning everyone. Because that seems to be.
They could have had a chat so soon during the. If you're looking for nitpicks,
do you understand?
Why couldn't you just ask Doctor Strange for one spell to not have those instead of having to do 5 spells on top of each other? He could have gotten it all taken care of right at the very beginning, and then the movie would have been over in an hour.
It very much is a be careful what you wish for moment, because Peter's like, oh yeah, make everyone forget. Oh wait, everyone is including Aunt May and MJ and Ned. So that's the one thing maybe he's guilty of, is not fully explaining what exactly he's asking for, but you got to have a movie. So
we get a full-blown superhero fight within the mirror dimension. Dr. Strange knocks Peter out of his body, and I love how Peter just thinks it's the coolest thing that's ever happened. Like, I love the fact that he swims through the air back to his body is laugh out loud funny. Do either of you have an answer as to how Peter can still move his body when he's not in it?
It's his spider sense. Because his spider sense is connected to his like neurology, which is all electric. It doesn't take the brain. It's part of his muscles. So he wouldn't even need to be in his body. But it was also super cool to see the spider sense things coming off of his head while he was in the astral form too. But yeah, no, that was I think that's a huge win for this film, is they did so many good moments of showing what his spider sense could do, or what it's just like in the comics. So it was cool. That I thought was perfectly done.
So, David, before we move on to talking about Doc Ock, we got just a little time left to talk about Doctor Strange's arc in this film. He clearly has an attachment to Peter Parker. He says, everybody, if we forget Peter Parker, everybody who loves you, we are going to not be able to remember you. Peter clearly now understands the gravity of what he's asking Doctor Strange to do, and he knows it's going to work. But just everything around Doctor Strange and this final scene trying to fix the multiverse from splitting, David, what really stood out to you within this scene?
Well, this moment is one of my Mount Rushmore moments for the movie.
I didn't ask you your Mount Rushmore. We will get into that right before we talk about Doc Ock. I apologize.
No worries. I figured we'd get to it eventually, and if not, I'm bringing it up now. No, this was one of my top 4 moments, Mount Rushmore moments of the movie. I love it. There's a tear in his eye as he is saying goodbye to Peter, and it's an interesting bookend to what happened when he was first casting the spell, because when the way that he lets Peter know that he says it'll be nice knowing you, implying that he's included in this, but he says it with just a little bit kind of a off the cuff or tongue-in-cheek manner. But when he says it in this final moment, he really means it. You can see that. Well, first of all, knowing Doctor Strange, you get the sense that it's very hard to earn his respect. I feel like it took even Tony Stark a long time for Stephen Strange to earn his respect. And in this moment right here, it's not said, but you can see through his eyes, through his emotion, through his face, that Doctor Strange really respects Peter. He respects, and he is proud of this decision. And it's interesting when he says in the middle of the movie, there's that line, this is why I never had kids. Like, this is a kid that, Doctor Strange has clearly been affected by Peter. He's been changed by Peter. And so this was just a great moment. I feel like him having that last second interaction before the world forgets him. Is with not somebody who really was a mentor, but at this point, maybe you could consider them equals.
Let's stick with that world who forgets him. Let's talk about this spell at the very end of the film. Everybody forgets who Peter Parker is. Stephanie says, curious to all who forgot. They kept saying in our world, not universe, multiverse, etc. There's a lot of people currently off world. Did they forget? We don't know. I think the brilliance of what they did with this film is they gave us everything we wanted, and they have the ability to remove Peter Parker and Spider-Man from the MCU altogether if they have to. If they need to do so because the Marvel Studios and Disney and Sony can't work together, they do not have to. They're not leaving the story like they did in Far From Home. Alex, do you have any thoughts as to we will wait and see how this spell plays out? Until then, let's just say Peter Parker does no longer exist in the MCU, even though he does.
Yeah, it's literally the perfect catch-all and kind of ties back to that whole idea of this movie not just being about Spider-Man, but being about the relationship between Sony and Marvel Studios. And I think with that message at the end, it's the easiest out ever of like, if we're going to use him, cool. You know, in the comics, they said he'd forget Spider-Man, but like the minute he takes his mask off, you would remember everything at that moment. It's so like maybe they do that if they wanted to. And if not, they don't need to. And they can go have him be in Sony or whatever they decide to do. But it really is the perfect way out for both parties.
We don't know what MJ and Ned remember. Do they remember fighting with Spider-Man? Is it to put in the words of Mark Valentine, is it like Frozen where you take the memories but leave the fun, where Anna and Elsa don't, like, she doesn't remember Elsa has ice powers, but she remembers everything else? We don't know. Let's not nitpick that too much. Go ahead, David.
This is my one not really a nitpick, because it's not an issue. I just am weird and think about these sort of things. But my one issue with this spell is, what about like technology? What about newspapers? We saw the newspapers that had, the picture of Peter Parker as Spider-Man. We have all these people who have cell phone videos of Peter Parker. Like, does that all just disappear off of people's cell phones? Like all the news reports, what happens to all of that? So I don't know.
Like the Ring where their face gets blurred out.
Yeah, there was I don't remember what I was watching. It was some video, but they were saying, I don't remember if it was from a comic, but they said it was like, or maybe it's from, it might have maybe Westworld. I'm not sure, but they said you would look at the camera and the thing would be playing on the screen, but then the minute you turn away, you already forgot what it was. So
yeah, I mean, it's something I'm willing to, if we're given like a one line explanation or a quick something in a future movie, like that's fine with me. This does not ruin the movie for me. It's just one of those things that, some people who have this kind of brain are going to think about. I'm one of those people. So it doesn't ruin the movie for me. It just makes me wonder, like, if this is an issue they're going to deal with. And like I said, I can write it off really easily if they take even one line of dialogue or a quick shot to explain it.
David, again, joining us from the Modern Gods podcast. David, what is the Modern Gods podcast?
Modern Gods podcast is mostly superhero based, not totally. We've only had a few episodes so far, but it's kind of in the intersection of comic books, pop culture, and elements of religion. In religion. I guess the best way you could say it is that some of us might consider Marvel our religion, and so there's an intersection there between mythology and comics, and that's kind of where this podcast lives.
Well, Marvel is not my religion. I sure do love it. David, I need your Rushmore, and then we're going to talk Doc Ock, and then we're going to welcome in Kara to talk about her Mount Rushmore. David, what is your Mount Rushmore moments from this film?
So number one, I already mentioned the Doctor Strange one, so I'll start with that and move on from there. The three Spider-Men learning to work together, swinging, and then them swinging into the moon. That I was reminded of the scene, the Batwing scene in Batman when he flies up, has that split-second silhouette with the Batwing in front of the moon. It's reminded me of that, but I mean, I feel like it was on every fanboy's wish list to see these three come together and fight, and I got choked up when I saw them running on the scaffolding, ready to jump. The music swells up, and you're like, "Oh God!" Like, this is why we're comic book fans. So that was one. Andrew saving MJ, not just that he did it, but that how that whole scene plays out. He did such great acting through his eyes. It was a scene where I feel like you could have easily overwrote it with more dialogue between Andrew and MJ, but they just didn't need it. His eyes said everything. So I'm glad that scene wasn't overscripted. And it was also a payoff to Andrew saying that Gwen Stacy was his Uncle Ben moment.
Yep.
It was his second chance.
Alex, you talked about it on Comics and Cinema Spoiler Podcast, where you talked about how everything with Tom was in slow motion. And then by the time Andrew even had the chance to react, he was even acting faster than the camera was keeping up with. And it just really made a big scene. David, I think you got one more.
Yeah, I'm just going to add one thing real quickly to that. It was interesting how he saved her. He didn't save her with the web. He scooped her up and then twisted over on his back. So if he did fall, it would have been her falling on him. So the whole situational awareness was cool. And then my final one is the Maze with Great Power speech. As that whole scene was unwinding, I realized what they were doing, that they were about to make this Aunt May scene, his Uncle Ben moment. But also for the fact how they connected it later on with the other, how this was this is how I can't say Peter. This is how Tom Holland ends up trusting the other Spider-Man when he says with great power, and then Tobey finishes it. That's what cemented that trust. And also in all the other Uncle Ben moments we've gotten, I won't speak for anyone else, but I was not crying when Uncle Ben died in the first Spider-Man. It feels like we're always crying for Peter, and this was the first time that we were crying with Peter, because we were so attached to Aunt May, just like he was. So just that how that whole great power scene unwinds, brings things together. And if you weren't crying there, then I don't know, maybe you're just a DC fan.
Our next two guests, Kara and Maya, will understand that we're running just a little bit behind, but we do need to talk Doc Ock. David, what stood out to you from the character of Alfred Molina's Doc Ock? I did call that he was going to be a hero.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't miss a beat.
He's so great.
It's like he just came right in from 2004 and picked this character back up. I like that they didn't really change his characterization, but that he was still allowed to be a villain, because how they explained that he was pulled from his universe at a moment when he still was a villain. He says, I had my thing I had Peter Spider-Man by the throat, and that's when he got pulled out. So when he comes into this universe, he is still a villain, and it allows him to stay in that mode for a good while. And his fight on the bridge with Peter was awesome. It was amazing.
Alex, he had the power of the sun in the palm of his hand. It was great. Like, Alfred Molina was so great.
He was. I think, this is something I'm sure we'll dive into as we go, but, them all coming into this universe, I'd mentioned it on my episode that the MCU just automatically made them better villains, because the MCU does such a good job making villains. And you see that called out by like Electro when he's like, I love it here. Like, the energy here is different. And so you see Doc Ock is so much better, in my opinion, than when he was in Spider-Man 2, just in terms of, the line delivery. I love when every time he'd say, my dear boy, and his glasses too. So very Doc Ock. It was perfection.
David, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
We're going to welcome in our next guest, Miss Kara. She ranked this around 8 to 10 within her MCU. I'm curious to see what her favorite moments were, because she doesn't have the nostalgia for the previous Spider-Man films quite like the same as the rest of us. Kara, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Yeah, it's true. I'm one of those that is not, it didn't do for me what it's done for everybody else. Not to say that I don't think it's a fantastic movie. I still really liked it. Restrictions are a little bit different here in Canada, so I've only been able to see it once. So all of these reactions are based off my first, my first impressions. So just bear with me.
Do you like it? Do you love it? Or do you gotta have it?
I'm sitting around a love it, I think. We'll see how it lands. Yeah.
What about in the Spider-Man? I think you commented you like Homecoming more than this film, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I love so the reason why I liked the Homecoming and No Way Far From Home is that they were so different than the other Spider-Man movies, and I really, really liked that, because I didn't really love the other Spider-Mans, the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield. So I really liked that those were different. This movie, I was kind of like, well, this is exactly like the first two series, but better. So it was kind of, hot take, I know. Where you got the feel in the hot.
I do. Kara, what were your Mount Rushmore moments from this film? Because there were still good ones, whether it's your favorite film or not.
Yeah, and like I said, I think this movie was fantastic. So there's a lots to to choose from. I have to go with Andrew Garfield coming through the portal, same as Jalen. No surprise to anybody. I did believe him that he wasn't going to be in this movie, so I was really surprised and excited about that. And the whole bread thing was hilarious. At the beginning, where Tom Holland and Zendaya are swinging around New York, I really liked that. I thought that was just kind of like fun to watch, and they were so cute together, all that kind of stuff.
Can I jump in real quick? We just had a comment saying, did anybody catch the mural at Peter's school? I did. I believe I saw Howard Stark, Hank Pym, and Dr. Erskine. Those are the three people that I remember. Anybody else that you caught, Alex?
Nope, those are the only three, I think.
Perfect. Kara, I apologize for interrupting.
That's fine. The three Spideys learning how to fight, that's already been mentioned, but like when they're joking around with each other at first before they learn to fight, that was hilarious. I really liked that. And then my last one would be, as everyone says, Andrew catching MJ. I hated The Amazing Spider-Man 2 for that reason, that he couldn't save Gwen, and I've never seen it again. I saw it in theaters once and that was it. So when I tell you, like, I was ugly crying, like I was Kim Kardashian ugly crying level in the theater at that moment. So that has to make my top 4.
Kara, I would recommend a rewatch of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It is aged very, very well. Other than that scene, but now it's at least come a little bit more full circle. Gwen's still not there, but
yes. And I will give honorable mention to Jamie Foxx's line about Spider-Man being black and hinting at Miles Morales. I was very excited about that.
We are going to talk about that very, very soon. Oh, you didn't get enough of Kara? Okay. Join us tomorrow night on Earth's Mightiest Weirdos Talking Hawkeye, episode 5, and everything that was there. Thank you so much for joining us, Kara.
You know, every time I tell my wife about Hawkeye, she always goes, "Hot guy?" Kind of, I guess.
Maya, is he a hot guy?
Oh, hot guy? Yeah, he looked good for his age, yeah. I guess.
Welcome to the show, Maya. Maya from her company, Mive. Tell us about Mive before we get into anything else, please, Maya.
Well, yeah, if anyone cares, I run
We do.
made-to-measure slow fashion marketplace, so that's eco-friendly, ethical, and long-lasting garments. So yeah, just working on making sure fashion is good for people and the planet. Little soundbite about Mive.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, Maya. Did you like it? Did you love it? Do you gotta have it when it comes to Spider-Man No Way Home?
Yeah, definitely gotta have it. I gave it like 10 out of 10 for sure. When I never had such an emotional reaction outside of like Endgame to a movie, when it felt like a roller coaster, and I just want to keep getting back in line and watching the movie, getting on the roller coaster, because I had such a great time watching it and I loved the film.
Have you had a chance to see it more than once yet?
Yeah, so I had to go out of town Friday, so Thursday night I had like a 3 p.m. showing, and then I turned around and went at 10:30 that night. Me and my sister went, so it's only been 2 times.
I think this is the first time I've actually seen the same film twice in the same day. I did it twice, and it was great. Maya, what was your Mount Rushmore of moments from Spider-Man No Way Home?
Man, I think for my number 1, I would say like them. Well, I'm going to just group the whole scene with introducing Andrew, not when he just steps out the portal, but him interacting with Ned's grandmother too, his Lola. Like, Andrew, I just love Andrew Garfield. Alex knows this. I think he's amazing. And he's that comforting Spider-Man. You see him, you're just like, oh, he gives me warm and fuzzies because he feels like that neighborhood Spider-Man, super caring. So I would say that was my number 1 for sure. Just seeing those first 5 minutes of him on screen. I would next, like everyone else, the Andrew catching Zendaya, because wow, that just felt so good. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like right when Tom got pushed to the side, I'm like, oh my God, he's about to catch her. And just seeing it happen in slow motion was great. And then I would say the hero, like all 3 Spider-Mans talking about the heroes that they fought. I thought that was just so funny. because it just really
I caught a purple alien in space, and he loves stones or whatever. Or no, I guess that's the Venom line, but it was so great.
right. And then even kind of a little bit after that, talking about, wait, I don't know if this was during that part, like, oh, the Avengers exist. Wait, you had a team. So I really liked how it kind of addressed the fact that, in a way, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is boosted because he has all these other heroes and this connected universe behind him. And then kind of just addressing the fact that these two other films were kind of made in silos. I really liked it. And the banter between the three of them are really good.
Super Tim says Andrew Garfield is the unsung hero of this movie. He had so many good moments. He's not unsung by my part. I am trying to sing his praises as much as I possibly can.
He did so good. And it's, man, so great.
Did we get all 4 of your moments? I think there's one more.
It's 4. I would say the line about from Electro kind of hinting at like a Black Spider-Man, because at first, I'm not even gonna lie, that first portal, it was dark. I'm like, wait, is that Miles' like darker suit? I thought it was gonna be Miles. So just hearing him acknowledge Miles in some way, it felt right, and I really liked it. It made me smile for sure.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we got to you a little bit late, but we want to talk to you specifically about Willem Dafoe acting his complete butt off about the character of Green Goblin. We are also going to do a giveaway again right now for this limited release Disney Parks pin. Let us know in the comments as many times as possible. Comment as many times as you can to let us know who your favorite villain of the Sinister Five were in this film. Maya, what about Willem Dafoe really stood out to you in this film?
So I'm going to say I love like the first 2 Spider-Man, like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies when I was a kid. And I feel like every rewatch as I gotten older it always diminished a little bit. I always thought that Green Goblin in the first movie was more of like a caricature. And I felt like this movie was the best of both Norman Osborn and Green Goblin. And William Dafoe, was it BD, Brandon Davis from Phase Zero? He tweeted like William Dafoe may be the best like actor casted as a villain, or however he worded that tweet. And I totally agree. And I'm so happy they got rid of that mask early on, because his faces are just iconic. Like, he doesn't need a mask. It's him in itself. Like how the laugh, the smile, the grin, everything just works so well. And I felt like seeing more of his face made him feel like more of a serious character. Watching Green Goblin, I don't know why I think of Sky High, that little gesture person from Sky High that Disney.
Oh yeah,
it's corny like that. So I always felt like this is so cool, because we see like the scientist that's trapped with this alter ego, and I love like the groundwork they have for his character. But I always thought the actual Goblin persona, it's like, why? Because at the end of the day, I mean, this is a big thing with Spider-Man movies in general. They always have like this scientist, and, they get experimented on, usually by themselves. And then for some reason that births an evil alter ego, or just like this persona. And so sometimes I wish I'm like, can we understand why, how? Like, is it just boom, you turn evil? So it was good to see like a good mix of both. Green Goblin being completely diabolical, like that last scene in Spider-Man, like when he basically gets killed, that was good, like hand-to-hand combat between Spider-Man. It was pretty brutal. But this one, you just felt how more evil he was, and I felt like he just was better portrayed as a villain in this film.
He sure seemed to learn how to use those pumpkin bombs to his advantage, for sure, especially when he blew up that box.
Right.
Alex, did you notice him stealing the donuts when May is talking to him? It's so great.
I think that's sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Maya, please.
I was just saying, for that scene too, is also good to have like Norman Osborn like at Feast. I felt like that was like the first time we really got to see Feast in that way. So it's like kind of like a sanctuary for people who have, who need something. So like seeing Norman, who is this very vulnerable person, to this alter ego there, felt very real, rather than him just being like all scared. And the first Spider-Man film, we didn't really see a lot of that vulnerable side. So I felt like that was a quick way to kind of ground us, like, man, he's a prisoner, and makes the use case of why Peter did what he did at the end more prominent and more meaningful. Like, yes, like he can help liberate these people.
Yeah.
Alex, what about you? Willem Dafoe, Green Goblin. He was the ultimate villain of this film. I will say, when we got to Feast, I thought we might be getting Mr. Negative as our sixth of the Sinister Six, which would have been cool. But
me too.
No,
but I loved him. I thought he was fantastic. We got, again, the MCU killed it in terms of making him better. We got a more comics accurate costume with the hood over his head. He had so many more classic lines, but also had some of the classic lines, like I'm something of a scientist myself. But when he said, and you may have to remind me how he says it, but when he's fighting Peter and he says, strong enough to have it all, too weak to take it. And then he just pile drives him through 4 floors of hotel. I was blown away. And I heard that he did most of his own stunts.
That was his rule of coming back, is he got to do his own stunts. 66 years old.
Really? Even him jumping on that glider, because I felt like that looked like a stunt double. Like when it's behind him and he's jumping up. I don't know why it looked like a different person.
He kind of looked like a stunt double in general.
Down on him and he's just laughing.
Yeah, that was.
And it's like, dude, you are so bad.
It was so good and really gave you a better understanding of his strength. Like really going from floor to floor to floor. And Happy's apartment, that was so cool to watch.
And then Lizard just throws him back in just to be fought by Goblin all over again. Maya, help us give this pin away. Pick a number 1 through 60.
Gotta go with 28.
28. All right. Maya says 28. We're going to get Maya out of here. Thank you so much, Maya. Check out Mive. It is absolutely worth your time and money. Thank you so much, Maya.
Bye, Maya. Too weak to send me home to die.
While we wait to find out who wins that pin with the number of 28 that Maya selected, we're going to welcome in Robert. Robert is very familiar with the two of us. Robert, Alex, and I, along with Mike Ruby and Mark Valentine over at Babu's Frickin' Podcast, talked all about Star Wars Visions. Check that episode out at Babu's Frickin' Podcast. We also talked a preview of Hawkeye before the series ever dropped. But Robert, tonight is not about any of those. Tonight is all about Spider-Man No Way Home. Robert, did you like it? Did you love it? Do you gotta have it? I think we got you muted, Robert. I can't hear you.
Sorry. Gotta have it. Digital, nice. Physical, 8mm, whatever. Get it, So yeah, gotta have it. Really good.
Absolutely. Well, what was your Mount Rushmore of moments, Robert? Do you have 4 scenes that stand out more than any of the other 17 that could have been included?
I mean, I guess a lot of people have already said the fight between him and Green Goblin.
I think that's the first time it's been mentioned in this context, though.
Yeah. Well, that fight scene at Happy's apartment building was cool. Excuse me. Freaking Matt Murdock. I like seeing him. It's good to see those guys finally, get to replay those roles in the MCU.
Robert, there was one particular part about that Matt Murdock scene that we were discussing that I would love for you to bring on air here.
Oh, yeah. Well, as amazing as it is for him to catch that brick, it was amazing for whoever threw that damn brick to almost hit Peter Parker in the face. So maybe that's a bullseye Easter egg. So,
whoa.
But that scene is cool too, because I think it's setting up something it could set up Armor Wars, because now Happy has to get a freaking lawyer. Because all the Stark tech,
that's a great. I never even thought Armor Wars. That's a great one.
So yeah, so there you go. They put one. They don't know it's Peter Parker anymore, because everybody forgot, but it still happened. Spider-Man had all the tech from Stark Industries and caused all the calamity in London. So that could be a jumping off point for for Armor Wars.
Well, and something else is when Peter shows up on the bridge right before he fights Doc Ock, he tries to use the Stark tech like. It says Edith offline. He tries to use the facial recognition. Everything's offline. So did Stark Tech completely get shut down? That Armor Wars, that seems to make a ton of sense, and that's not anything that I even ever considered.
Yeah. Let's see. I got 2 more.
2 more.
Though, when you got all 3 of them on, Statue of Liberty, and when that back and forth they were having, like just sitting on the scaffold and having their chats, that was pretty cool. Like talking about how do you get the webs in your arms or whatever. And they're talking to Peter too. So
Peter 3.
Cool. And yeah, the Andrew Garfield number 4. No, in no particular order, he killed it. His whole interaction in that movie was freaking badass.
Robert, we've got your Instagram handle in the feed here at Clouser.Robert. Check out his artwork on his Instagram. Absolutely great stuff. Robert, we got you on here to talk 3 villains, and we got to do so pretty quickly in order to keep things going. But Lizard, we finally got confirmation that it was re-siphons from The Amazing Spider-Man. Anything from Lizard that liked you other than the fact that he could talk?
No, you can keep it quick. That was cool, I guess. I'm glad it was the same guy.
Sandman was the same. Sandman was the same guy, cool as well. Like
they did him like they did King Shark in Suicide Squad. They kept him in the van while everybody's
that's right,
getting fixed up. So
that was pretty trusting of them to allow him to stay in the van because he said he wanted to stay there. Sandman's introduction was honestly my favorite of the 5 villains. The fact that he was there to help Peter, he was truly the same character from the first one. I thought that was really, really great stuff.
Yeah, that was cool.
We want to talk mostly about Jamie Foxx and his character of Electro. We found out how he got that arc reactor. Robert, what about Electro that really stood out to you in this film?
I think it's just Jamie Foxx getting to be Jamie Foxx. It was pretty good and more accurate comic book costume, even though like the headgear was more, just electricity instead of like fabric. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and cool. Like with him calling out a black Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's like, sorry.
I love that. That's the other thing is like when having seen it 4 times now, I've been able to focus knowing the laugh is coming so I can still try and listen to what he's saying. And he says, you're from Queens, you got the suit, you take care of poor people. Like, I just thought you were going to be black. And Andrew Garfield is like legitimately, I'm so sorry, man. Like, it's so good.
That dude was awesome, man. He was awesome.
I thought it was great. Alex, what about Electro for you?
Yeah, I loved him. I mean, like I said, he was the epitome of what it means to be an MCU villain, where, his first scene when he comes in, he's like, oh, you're in a different universe. And he was like, I felt that. Like, it feels good here. And I was like, yeah, it does. Like, it's great to be a villain in the MCU. He's not blue anymore. He's not, all stuttery and nerdy. He's kind of buff, and he doesn't mess around, which I thought was really cool. And I also kind of loved, too, when he had the thing on his chest. And it was beeping, and he started just going like, something's not right about this. And it was just like that classic of, you don't want to be good, right? Or like, you don't want change. You don't like change. And he did such a good job. I loved him.
I think it was more like him realizing how much power he could have with the arc reactor. It's just temptation more than anything.
Yeah,
else.
Exactly. Yeah.
The fact that he goes, are we just going to ignore the fact that I'm standing in the woods? Like, is it your fault that I'm in the woods or in this universe? No,
I hate the woods.
Universe specifically. Are we just going to ignore that I'm butt naked? Like, oh man, like it made sense that he got his body back as much as anything in this movie made sense. And he likes how he looks. I love that Lizard called out, you used to have bad teeth, glasses, and a comb over.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But Jamie Foxx just like feeling himself. Like, I thought it was great when he strokes his chin. Man, it was just so good. But the Black Spider-Man call out, massive stuff. I can't wait to get Miles Morales in this universe. I thought it was great. I thought that was the best part of Electro, and there was a lot of good stuff from Electro in this movie. Yep. Well, Robert, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you want to check out Robert's art on Instagram at Clouser.Robert. And we will have Robert on Weirdos again very, very soon. Thanks so much for joining us, Robert.
All right. Appreciate you guys.
See ya.
See you guys. All
right. I've said it once. I've said it a million times. We are at a breakneck speed. Stephanie Wyatt. Consolation for the fact that she could not travel to New York this weekend. She is the winner of this limited edition Disney Parks pin. We know a man or two that knows a few things about Disney parks. He's even repping Disney parks as we speak. Mr. Dwayne Willie of This Diz Life podcast. Dwayne, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Nice to
Dwayne,
see you.
Right off the bat, did you like it? Did you love it? Do you gotta have it?
I have absolutely gotta have it. It was amazing for me. I enjoyed from start to finish. I got to see it with my family. My kids were super invested. From the very first minute, we're all crying, we're laughing, it was just all the emotions that were going on. The theater I was in was completely full, packed and jammed. And at all the big moments, there were huge eruptions in our theater. I mean, it was, when Matt Murdock showed up, boom, everybody blows up. I mean, so many different times. So it was just a blast. We loved it.
We've got Mackenzie here in the comments, the very first one that I could pull up, saying she loved the movie. She loves seeing the movie with her dad because her dad is the coolest and most genuine person on the face of the planet. Dwayne, thank you so much for joining us. We want to know what your Mount Rushmore of moments is from this film.
Well, I don't think they're a whole lot different than most people's, but I'll just start the Aunt May moment for me. Right there when just the whole thing, the conversation, her giving that line and then her dying. And, I think it was brought up, Peter's like, what are you doing? He's like, why, what's going on here? And that whole moment, I mean, we're crying and we're like, we're so invested, those emotions. So that was one. Obviously, the portal, when the guys, both of them, when Toby and Andrew come through the portal, that whole entire scene, loved it. Another one of my favorite scenes, and we've talked about it a little bit, is when all three Spider-Man are standing up there and they're talking and they're kind of going back and forth about the tragedies that they've all had. And Toby has that line to Andrew where he says, "You're amazing." He was like, "You're amazing." He says, "Let me hear you say it. You're amazing." That whole scene right there, I just love that. And it's been said several times. Andrew Garfield, to me, just was amazing in this, entire movie. He was
pun intended
wonderful.
or no?
Yes, very much so. He was wonderful. And then my fourth one being obviously the MJ, Andrew Garfield catching MJ. That huge redemption. To me, that's just, the redemption story there for me was wonderful. So, there's so many other moments, that we can go through. Those were some that just really jumped out at me. But again, just getting to see that movie with my family and the emotions that we all went through was really, really cool for me. So the movie's definitely in my top 5 MCU movies. Just, I loved it. I gotta have it. Even more than loved it.
I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. I'm not prepared to make a top 5 ruling just yet because it's just so new.
And Justin, it is recency bias, but
Justin says, how much did it make this weekend? It did 253 domestically, 253 million, and it did a total of $587 million worldwide. So the $1 billion movie sure feels back, especially headed into a holiday weekend. I know that Dwayne's going to go catch this movie at least one more time.
Yeah, absolutely.
This movie is just, it's going to have legs. I do think that the rewatchability of it, people are going to go see this movie a second time before they go see a Matrix or anything else.
Absolutely.
Another time. Dwayne from This Diz Live podcast, thank you so much for joining us. Check him out tomorrow on This Diz Live at 7:30 on this exact same YouTube channel that you're talking about, just an hour before we talk about Hawkeye episode 5. Thank you so much, Dwayne.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Dwayne's counterpart, Mark Valentine, has been in the back helping us out throughout the night, running comments, running everything else. Mark Valentine of every podcast online, with the exception of just a couple of them, from This Diz Life podcast, Tiki Room Radio, commonly of Earth's Mightiest Weirdos, and Babu's Frickin' Podcast. Mark Valentine, welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. I am having a great time. I want to say thank you to everybody who came out, everyone that's been watching in the comments. I've been sitting backstage, running tech. Bryan, amazing, putting this all together. Bryan securing the stuff for the giveaway. Thank you guys for this celebration of all things Marvel, of all things Spider-Man. This is like just such a big show. It's been so amazing. Bryan's doing a great job. Thank you to Alex for committing for the full run. But Alex, I know this is like a drop in the bucket for you. So
I love this stuff. I could do this all day.
You should sing it. You should
I could do this all day.
So, but I love this movie. I mean, you've been doing the Cold Stone Creamery. I like it. I love it. I like it. I love it. I want more of it. Like, just keep on giving me Spider-Man. I said in the hot take, I think this is it's definitively top 5, maybe top 3, maybe even a top 2 movie for me. It was just it was the kind of movie that celebrated decades of achievement in cinema and pulling together casts that have spanned generations. And I mean, I get to, ironically enough, talk about the men of a certain age. Like, that's my Spider-Man. So I have been assigned Tobey Maguire for a reason. because Tobey Maguire, like,
no. You asked for Tobey Maguire. You picked Tobey Maguire off of a full list. Do not say I assigned you anything. You're an old man.
Okay, well, I associate most with men of a certain age, and Tobey Maguire is my Spider-Man. I have so many interesting things to kind of say around Tobey. Before we really get into Tobey, I really want to offer a very public apology to Andrew Garfield. So
very public. I think you're overestimating the reach of this podcast.
So, well, no, it's going to be here in perpetuity, and who knows, 10 years from now, it'll still be sitting on this Diz Life's YouTube. But I purchased all of the films in preparation of this. I wanted to make sure that I had watched, that everything was very fresh. I had maybe, we had some guests on, and I think it was Jalen right before who said that she did not like The Amazing Spider-Man for just the
Kara.
Kara. Okay, so Kara said, we've had a bunch of people talking different things. My apologies.
Oh, you're good. You're fine.
Said she did not watch that movie save for the one time that she saw it. I was definitively in that camp, but for different reasons. I never gave Andrew Garfield a fair shake, and I never gave him his due, because for me and for my generation, Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man. I was very upset and sad that Sony had abandoned Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I thought he deserved a number 4. I thought that we as fans deserved a better film than we got with 3. And instead of doing that, Sony completely pulled the plug on that character and on that arc, and they moved to Andrew Garfield, and they moved to a different Spider-Man, a different tone, a different take. And it was something that did not resonate with me. But in fairness, I didn't give The Amazing Spider-Man a fair chance. So this viewing, and I told you this, we had this conversation because then I hit you up with a hot take. I started with Andrew Garfield. I didn't watch Tobey. I started with... So this time around, I started with The Amazing Spider-Man. Dude, those movies have aged so well, both of them. But The Amazing Spider-Man specifically has aged so well. The technology, the way that the fight sequences are shot, even the way that Andrew Garfield puts such a wonderful take on Peter. And I know that people have said, Tobey was a better Peter Parker. Andrew was a better Spider-Man. I loved the way that Andrew Garfield had that very cool, very angsty, very romantic take on Peter. It's not something that you've seen with any of the Spider-Men. And I gave you the hot take that I think The Amazing Spider-Man is one of the best Spider-Man movies. And you were like, you thought I was on like a drug trip. I stand by that statement. I think Electro was amazing. I think Jamie Foxx got...
You mean Amazing Spider-Man 2. You like that one better than the first one, correct?
I like that one better than the first one. And I think that it has aged very well. So in this movie, seeing Andrew get a redemption, it made me feel even better, because I'm very much on the Andrew Garfield train, like right now. And going back and watching those movies again without really the fog that I had in my head coming in, not wanting to like them because I loved Tobey Maguire, I think I gave him more of a fair shake. That said, Tobey Maguire is my dude. He will forever and always be Spider-Man to me. I like him as an artist. I like a lot of the other stuff that he does, but I love the way that Tobey Maguire was there for men of my age, that, things don't feel great anymore when we wake up in the morning. And it made me feel good to know that both Spider-Man and I have aches and pains. And with, the help of a partner, we can get some of those aches and pains to go away. There's nothing that beats a good stretch.
Nothing that beats a good stretch. And you need somebody there to pop your back for you.
Absolutely.
As well. Alex, I know you share the same sentiments as Mark does regarding The Amazing Spider-Man, especially the second one. We'll talk about Andrew Garfield a little bit more here when Anthony joins us as well. And Mark, if you're able to stick around when we pull Anthony on to talk Garfield, I'd love to be able to talk just all 3 of the Spider-Men together amongst the 4 of us, if that works for you. But yeah. What about Tobey Maguire when he came through, when Ned says, and eventually you're going to be able to hear it over the cheers of this film, but Ned says that Tobey Maguire is just a regular guy. When Tobey Maguire showed up on screen, did you squeal like a 10-year-old little girl or a 4-year-old little girl?
Yes, and yes. I think
no squeal from me, but I did lose my breath. And I was like, oh my, and it was crazy. And I mentioned it. He looks older. And I think, there's an interesting conversation there too of like all the villains get pulled in right before they die, but the Spider-Men are pulled in. It almost feels like as is, like
currently,
at current day, which is kind of interesting. But I loved that because you get to see all three of them together, and they're so distinct. You've got the adult Spider-Man, the college Spider-Man, and the high school Spider-Man, and they're played that way. And I thought Tobey was perfect that he didn't come in with a suit. It almost looked like, it's his side gig now, like it's not his full-time job. Whereas Andrew is over here saying, I'm not even Peter anymore. He says I don't have time for Peter Parker stuff. So it was really cool to see them kind of do that. And it kind of like what you were saying. I've loved the Tobey Maguire movies. Each time I've watched them, like Maya said, my appreciation has diminished a bit, but I still love Tobey. He's my least favorite of the three, but it's like, comparing apples to oranges sort of thing. So when he pulled through, I was just so happy.
Yeah.
Toby's waved to Lola, like when he comes through.
Oh yeah,
he winks at him, and he's just like, "Hi."
She looks at him like the audience, like
Yep.
she was in on the joke. She gives him like a little nod, like "Here you go," and he's just like, "Oh, it was so perfect."
So Mark, he comes through the portal. He's clearly in touch with his spider sense to the point of I think your friend needs my help. He's been doing the research because he knows who Ned and MJ are. And that's something that Andrew Garfield didn't seem to be spending as much time learning, other than I'm in this universe, I'm blonde, to pull Peter B. Parker line. But Mark, how did just the caring nature, he was kind of Uncle Ben that we never got within this trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, his age, and Alex just said this, we essentially get three different Spider-Men at very different phases of their lives. And so he's like the senior member of this panel, in dress and mannerisms and the way he carries himself. Like he's the old wise man in terms of like this gig and this game. And in the superhero gig, I mean, assuming that time moves in the same fashion as it has for us, the viewing audience, like he's in his mid 40s, mid to late 40s at that point. And I mean, he definitely is playing that mentor role. One of my favorite moments of the movie when Peter experiences the trauma and the loss of May, like he's the one that has that breakthrough moment first with him by echoing the line that May said and repeating the line that he got from his uncle. And you and I have talked about this offline, that it was so interesting, and a concept that we talk about on Earth's Mightiest Weirdos when we did the What If series, that we talked about the what if Doctor Strange lost his heart and not his hands, was the concept of his love is destined to die, that there's nothing that he can do to change that fate, that is the genesis of Dr. Stephen Strange, that she must die in order for him to become the Sorcerer Supreme. And I kind of drew parallels to that and said, in every single universe, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, must experience a loss of this magnitude in order to transform and to fully actualize the hero that he's going to become. So that moment and that shared experience and that empathy that he showed on the rooftop came perfectly from Peter, who, despite the fact that it's happened so long ago in his life, that he's never forgot it. It's a moment of immense importance in his life, that was the moment when his Uncle Ben died. And so that shared sorrow and that shared experience coming from him worked oh so well. And I think Tobey Maguire, I mean, I know he gets a lot of garbage because the movies, when they were made, it was just a different time and a different tone for superhero films. They were meant to be more cartoonish and more tied to like pulp and pop than the current iteration in which we're making these now. Films that were being made are made now. They're in the genre. We take the genre way more seriously than we did when those Spider-Man movies were made. And they were meant to be more cartoonish. I like the way that he played Peter, but he's a great actor. Like, go watch Cider House Rules. Like, he's a very, very solid thespian. He knows how to deliver a line, and he was like they all were, right? But Peter Parker, or Peter 2, was pitch perfect in this film. And a lot of fan service. We got so much fan service paid from you know, his time in the suit. I even love the line, and we were joking before, is when he says, "Are you going to suit up, or are you going to go into battle like a what was it, a hip
cool youth pastor, cool youth pastor?"
And then he just goes and pulls the shirt down. Like, it was just so the way he played it was so perfect. All three of them were great. But Alex said this a minute ago, like the Peter Portals, when he came through, my mouth was agape. I mean, it was just wide open, catching flies at that moment.
Patrick says, I'm still confused how Toby recognized Ned and MJ. And then Stephanie responds with something I agree with, that he had been there since the villains got pulled in, so they would have seen the news, which Ned and MJ were all over. That's what I agree with. I just think he's been doing his homework to figure out where he is, why he's feeling the way that he's feeling. Well, I don't think there's any better way to talk about Peter 2 and Peter 3 than bringing on Anthony, who's going to help us talk about Peter 3.
What's up, guys?
Keep Mark here to talk about that. Anthony, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing great. Mark, we didn't get to it, so let's get to yours first, and then we'll go to Anthony on his. Mark, what is your Mount Rushmore of moments from Spider-Man No Way Home?
I'll go quick because so many of mine are shared. Aunt May, with great power comes great responsibility. I know that it was altered slightly. Forgive me that I've paraphrased it. That moment had me ugly crying. The girl next to me was just sobbing. It was a puddle. But that moment was amazing. The banter with Peter 2 and Peter 3 and the portals. I mean, Peter Portals was easily one of the best executed things, even though it wasn't really a secret at that point. So much of it had been leaked. It still worked so well. Andrew Garfield, Peter 3 saving MJ was again tears, like just tears in that moment, and him getting that opportunity when he couldn't save Gwen, and him cradling her and landing that was just so amazing. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Brian said there were like I have 17. I don't have 4. I'm like him. But I'm going to choose one that hasn't been said for argument's sake. I'm going to go post credits and say Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness teaser, if only because I was so sad. I was infinitely sad at the end of the movie. So it pulled me out of my sorrow and just feeling so bad for Peter and not having anyone. And it was like, ooh, piece of candy. It was something shiny and something distracting for me to say, like, yes, I'm looking forward to something rather than going home and crying myself a river in the shower. I'm happy that we're going to get more MCO, and I'm looking forward to more MCU.
Matt says, I'm happy Sam Raimi is about to getting his shot in the MCU. Sam Raimi is directing Multiverse of Madness. Part of the agreement of Marvel Studios and Sony's agreement for making this film is Marvel Studios can pull from the Spider-Verse for one of their films. Man, I think we might see Tobey Maguire show up in Multiverse of Madness, and it wouldn't be a Tom Holland pull instead. That'd be really cool to see Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi come back together. I really don't know. We'll talk about Multiverse of Madness here in a little bit. But again, Anthony, welcome to the show. Primarily talking about Peter 3, but just everything from this film. Anthony, do you like it? Do you love it? Do you got to have it?
I like it. I love it. And I have to have it. Give me all of it. I'm just kidding. This movie was hot garbage. No, this movie was fantastic. It was so much fun being in a packed theater again, and to echo what everybody said in their experience of, claps and cheers and tears. And it was a good time to be in a room full of people that are there to see the movie and not just hang out and kill a couple hours.
I never thought I would ever hear the cheers in a movie theater that I heard when Cap picked up Mjolnir in Endgame, or the portals in Endgame. But man, if those portals didn't match it. Anthony, what were your top 4 Rushmore moments of?
Okay, so I haven't been listening the whole time, so excuse me if any of these are doubles. My first one, I'm gonna have to say when all 3 Peters are pointing to each other and we get a recreation of that classic meme. Wait, me, you, me, no. I'm gonna go with the mid-credit scene with Venom. And forgive me, Brian, I know I did not recognize that was Danny Rojas at the time. I was looking at him, I was like, why does that guy look so familiar? And then I was like, after I saw your comment, I was like, oh, it was Danny Rojas. I was so just in awe of what I just saw in the movie.
Senor, my family disappeared for 5 years.
3 is going to be the Spider-Man versus Doc Ock, that first initial bridge fight.
Did you feel like we had seen too much of it? One thing I want to call out in that bridge fight is when Doc Ock picks up one of those circle, whatever we're calling them, the pipes, and you can actually see down through the pipe and you can see Doc Ock through it. I think that was just great filmmaking. I just wanted to call that out.
I've only seen it once, so I'd have to.
No, you're fine. But did you feel that scene was diminished by having seen a lot of it in the trailers, or not really? I guess not.
A little bit, and only because when it happened, like as Green Goblin is flying towards him, that's when it like cuts and like Doctor Strange like pulls him out and then transports Spider-Man and Doc Ock to the basement or whatever they called it. So yeah, I mean, I guess that did seem like a lot, but at the same time, how else are you gonna tease stuff like Doc Ock and Goblin with the tentacles and the pumpkin bomb? So
I think the Undercroft was the name of that, and that's basically his laundry room. I'm going to refer to the laundry room as the Undercroft from now on.
Yeah, which you'd think he should upgrade his washer and dryer.
It was rough.
That one from
He has magic.
It was like the first washer and dryer ever invented. And then my fourth is going to be Electro asking Peter if those are his Lego. Because I felt so seen when he asked him that.
I just got one question. Are these your Legos?
Like he's just so uncertain about how a kid playing with Legos is going to be able to fix his issue.
Especially because the Legos is in like a million pieces.
Yeah.
because the thing knocked the Death Star over, which is a callback to Homecoming. I thought that was great. Well, Anthony, you're here to help us talk about Peter 3. Mark was here to help us talk about Peter 2. Let's start we talked about the portals. We have gotten to the nitty gritty of that. Other than Jax's Mount Rushmore moment was Andrew Garfield crawling on the ceiling to take down the cobwebs. I thought that was laugh out loud funny. Yeah. And the fact that he calls her Lola is great. But we start in the lab. Andrew Garfield says he has no time for Peter Parker stuff. Did you feel and I know you love Andrew Garfield. You always have been there. You feel vindicated right now.
I feel so vindicated that everybody else can finally see what I saw in The Amazing Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I've always been a huge fan of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but anytime I say it, I get absolutely obliterated by anybody I'm talking to. So I just kept it buried deep inside, and now everyone can finally see where I was coming from. No, I mean, Andrew Garfield's fantastic, and I feel like he took this as an opportunity to show how good he is. I mean, he got like a year full of crap after The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, and basically Sony was just like, all right, well, that movie did horrible at the box office, so you're done, especially after you set up the Sinister Six. I mean, it literally ends the way The Amazing Spider-Man 2 ends with him swinging the sewer plate. That is when The Amazing Spider-Man 3 should have picked up, just how Far From Home and No Way Home picked up immediately after.
So now to play devil's advocate there just a little bit. I don't know if I think the Sony leaks definitely didn't help that situation either. But I mean, Civil War only came out 2 years after The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 also came out the same time as Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and Guardians of the Galaxy. They're just better films. So I think the fact that it was playing in that superhero universe surrounded by those two films, plus they didn't really get the chance to make a third Andrew Garfield film because the opportunity with Marvel Studios and Tom Holland came along. So we don't know exactly where they would have gone there, but yes, you are correct. Andrew Garfield caught crap from every angle there. Go ahead, Mark.
Anthony, do you think that because of the fan reaction to this film, the outpouring of support to Andrew, do you think that Sony looks at this and maybe revisits the idea of an Amazing Spider-Man 3?
I mean, Twitter is definitely blowing up that people want it. I mean, it's almost feeling like the Snyder cut of Justice League, how all these fans were just pestering Warner Brothers saying, we want it, we want it, we want it. I keep seeing people saying they want a Disney Plus series with Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, which they have no idea how anything works. So I was just immediately ignore that.
Yeah, that can't work.
Yeah.
Insert Han Solo. That's not how the Force works.
I mean, I know Andrew Garfield has told Marvel that he will play Spider-Man again if they want him to, but I don't know if Sony will take it on their own. But I don't know.
If you need Spider-Man to visit Venom, or you need Spider-Man to visit Morbius or whatever, like make him the Venom Spider-Verse Spider-Man, and I am all in.
Well, it just seems like, I mean, I don't want to, you know, this has been such a celebration. I don't want it to get, I don't want to get it like going in the wrong direction. But Tom Holland has kind of said he does not have interest in playing Spider-Man in a Sonyverse. You have a guy in Andrew Garfield who's like, me, I'll do it. Like, I'm here. Yay. Like, isn't that a no-brainer for them to be like, we have a guy that's willing, able, excited,
and wants to fight an alien.
I mean, to me, is that just not a no-brainer for Sony? They're rolling out like all of these villain movies, and who's going to be Spider-Man? Tom Holland's like, not me. It's got to be Andrew, right? Doesn't it make sense?
Well, you got Miles, you got Spider-Gwen too. You got a lot of other characters that they could pull through, and I would love to see Andrew again too. But, and I hate saying it, but it's like, why weren't you celebrating the movies when they came out? And I feel like there's almost a piece of that of like, okay, just because all of these fans are now saying that they want Andrew Garfield, now we have to change all of these plans to kind of appease the masses in this moment. Like, who knows where things are going to be in a year? And if they have other Miles plans and things like that, I would rather see that than see Garfield again. I think this was Amazing Spider-Man 3 in a sense, that we got to see such a perfect performance from him that who knows, maybe we get another movie from Sony and it's just as bad as the other Amazing Spider-Man movies where people get mad at it again, sort of thing. I don't know. I love them retroactively. But, and I'll admit too that I was one of the ones that didn't like them when they came out, only because I wanted Spider-Man to go back to Marvel. But I just think, I don't know, there's a fan deservedness there that I think it should be talked about. Of like, do we just put people in the movies every single time that people say they love them in this one, you know, little instance?
Let's keep in that top right corner. Alex, we saw the dream team up that was things of dreams. They run off the scaffolding. They learn that the Avengers are not a band, that they were a team of superheroes. And they not only learn how to work together, honestly, that scene of them with the moonlight behind them and them webbing each other around to land on the top of that is great. Almost just as good for me is when they hand off the Sandman cure and and you get the slow motion of Andrew Garfield through the air and he tosses it and Tom Holland catches it and then throws it into Toby. Man, it was just great. Alex, what of this team up? There's nothing that could have made it better, is there?
You know, except a couple more Spider-Men coming through the portals, maybe. But no, with what we got, I think it was perfect. You get them teaming up, you get them working together, you get them not working together too, which is a cool thing to see that, yeah, they're a lot of loners. But yeah, that scene, I think the Sandman bit of just seeing his hand as he's sinking in was like a classic comic book look, which was really cool. But then also when Garfield throws the thing at Peter for Goblin, and he's like, nice catch, nice toss. Which was, it just, every moment between them was absolutely electric. And I know you talked about this a while back of, you know, I don't think they're going to be in it, or if they're in it, they're not going to be in it a lot. And I think they were in it a lot, but it was the perfect amount of a lot too. Like they were a part of the movie in a really good way that I think couldn't have happened in any other universe. Like all the stars aligned for it.
Yeah, I was very wrong. Like I thought if we were going to get them, it was going to be just for this moment, and that was going to be it. But they brought in, they made a darn near, they walked a perfect line for me. And I think they did such a good job of balancing nostalgia with what worked for the story and everything else. CM Frankie says, I feel the same way about Natalie Portman that we're talking about Andrew Garfield, but that's for another podcast. I have a feeling Alex might want to come back for that podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well. Yes, please. You know, and I'd call out too here in the comments, Stephanie has a really great point about not bashing Sony too much, but you know, has the actor surpassed Sony? That's that whole piece I've been talking about of like, this movie shows that Sony can do a really good job when they're teaming up with other people, but they have a slate of movies coming out that aren't like this movie at all. And I still don't trust those movies. Like I'm really interested in seeing Morbius and my interest has grown a lot, but they've got a long way to go to prove themselves. And I totally agree with you, Stephanie, that like at this point, you know, Sony doesn't deserve Andrew Garfield for what they did to him in that sense. And
I have concerns, Alex, after seeing the Morbius trailer. I have concerns tonally how that's going to work in the
exactly
Spider-Verse.
Like the movie itself looks cool. Like I'm gonna go see it and I really hope I enjoy it, but where does it sit? Where does it stand? Like, okay, you're trying to make this giant Spider-Verse of movies and you've got this Morbius movie and you're talking like, I don't know. There's a lot of wading through the mud, I think.
Well, and Morbius is not helping like by having like the Daily Bugle from Toby's universe and the Oscorp from the Amazing Spider-Man universe, and having Adrian Toomes as Michael Keaton. Like, we don't know what universe it's
they actually had a thing before the movie started when we saw it in IMAX. I think it was a Regal theater, and they had like a Nuvi Maria Menounos thing, and these two guys were talking about that. They were saying like, people are wondering about this, that, and the other, and they're like, what if this takes place in a universe where all of those things exist? And I was just like, yeah, okay, that'd be cool, but Sony has a lot of explaining to do then. They're like constantly just making all this random stuff, and the only time it's good is when they work with Marvel Studios. So it's very concerning. I'm still very weary.
My hope, I'm not going to take us down this rabbit hole, but my hope is that this movie makes like $2 billion and Disney makes Sony an offer they can't refuse, and they just buy it. Just take it.
Yeah.
Man, I don't. It's the golden goose, man. I don't know if there's a price tag for it, especially in this current world.
Come on, Bob.
A dollar more. It's a dollar more than what they're willing to pay.
Exactly, it's $1 more than what they're willing to pay for it.
Mark, to go back and answer your question about if they're going to do Amazing Spider-Man 3, I don't think they will. I think the speech that Andrew gives on the rooftop when he's talking about how he's basically he just went dark and violent and rageful.
Yep.
I think that was a good closure of how it ended for us, and now we get a peek into what happened after, and I think that's their way of just closing the book on it and being done with it. So
yeah, Anthony, keep going. What about this team up of the three of them? Could there have been anything better? What made you giddy like a schoolgirl?
Oh man, just them swinging off of each other, and to go back and to watch the trailer and see him at the top of the Statue of Liberty, and then to now know that the other two are right behind him is really cool. Other than that one scene in the trailer where the lizard gets punched by somebody invisible.
He gets kicked. He doesn't get punched. He doesn't.
He gets kicked, which is funny because when I watched it, I was looking at lizard specifically because I wanted to know who kicked him. No, I mean, the only thing that I think could have made this better was a Stanley cameo.
Yeah.
Where would it have been? Where would you have put it?
So I have two options. One would be he would be like a security guard, and then he would hear something on the roof of the building when all three of them finally meet. And then after, he opens the door and nobody notices him. And then after Toby says, with great power comes great responsibility, and finishes the quote, Stanley like drops his keys, and then they all look over and he goes, yeah, I know somebody who used to say that too, or something along the lines. Or if he was just like a security guard at the Statue of Liberty when all this was going down, and he just looks up and see all three Spider-Men and just makes some kind of quip joke that he always does. So those would be my two. Or at the diner.
Yeah. Or I would have loved him as like J. Jonah Jameson's like producer. I think that I think you're wrong about Spider-Man. Like, I think that'd been kind of cool. Alex, have you given much thought to where Stan Lee might have fit in this film?
Just now, as you were mentioning it, and I would love it if he would have been the person to show up with him at the graveyard, and that he also still knew that he was Spider-Man. That like he's sitting there. Maybe even he shows up and he's still talking with Happy, and Happy walks away, and you hear a little bit as he's staring, and Stanley comes and like either gives him a hug, puts his arm around his shoulder, and says like, it's going to be okay, Spider-Man. And something like that, where like, he's the only one in the universe that like, I'm getting chills just thinking about it, but like, that would have been really touching, especially again, with what's happened to Stan, that would have been really cool.
Well, and then with what's happened to Stan after Steve Ditko passed, and the line we get into the Spider-Verse of he's never really gone, like very Star Wars level stuff as well. And I like that one. I like that one.
Or him spraying the Ditko.
That would have been great.
He's the one tagging the buildings.
An old man graffiti. That'd be fantastic. Mark, have you given any thoughts on where Stan Lee might have fit?
Nope, I'm not stepping on Alex's. That's it. That's the
great.
perfect one. That's it. He wins.
That's great. Mark, this scene of the three of them teaming up, I mean, it's fantastic. Is there anything that stood out to you here?
Yeah, I just want to bring, I can't believe I forgot to mention this, the dialogue on the web shooters versus like him being able to produce it, and then them asking like, have you ever had a blockage? Like, has it ever, like, you ever had like, has it stopped up? And then he's like, yeah. And he has the moment where he's like, yeah, actually, yeah, that has happened. It was more of like an existential crisis. There was so much meta humor in this that was just absolutely perfect. And the whole thing where Dwayne talked about this, you know, that when he's like, I'm lame, like I haven't fought anyone, I want to fight an alien. And he's like, dude, you're amazing. Say it, you're amazing. And just Peter harping on that, moments like that is what really made this film something spectacular that we haven't, even though both of those, the first two Spider-Man movies have really been great for me, but the way that this one connected fans of all three of those sagas and brought them together, and we all lived for, if only for like 2.5 hours, we all lived under the same umbrella. We all celebrated together. No matter who your Spider-Man was in this film, we locked arms and we were united in our love of the web slinger in those moments. And it was absolutely beautiful.
Not only who your favorite Spider-Man was, but what your favorite Spider-Man movie was. Like that had a moment within this film, whether it was Homecoming, Far From Home, that's your guy. That's who this movie's made out of. If you love Spider-Man 3, I would love to hear from you, but you got Sandman, like you got all that, and it solidifies. And Sandman was crucial to convincing Doc Ock that he probably actually died at the end of this. When Max Dillon comes to the realization of, yeah, I was bringing in all this energy. Oh crap. I was about to die. Like, I thought that was laugh out loud funny. I thought it was great. Josh says he would have loved to see him as the janitor in the school making the cures. Thanks for joining us, Josh. Stephanie says, Alex, stop it. She's cried enough the last couple of days. Mark, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Tobey Maguire. Andrew Garfield, Anthony, thanks for jumping in as well. Anthony, we're going to keep you here for just a minute if you wouldn't mind. We can have a reunited.
Yeah, I'm going to go sit in the back again. Thank you guys. This was awesome.
Mark, appreciate it. We'll keep Anthony for just a minute for a comics and cinema reuniting of we talked about Venom Let There Be Carnage, and we're going to bring in one more, and we have Ryan here to help us talk about Venom. Venomverse is here. Ryan, welcome to the show. Before we talk about Venom, before we talk about Multiverse of Madness, Ryan, I would love to hear how you feel about this film. Did you like it? Did you love it? Do you gotta have more of it?
Oh, I gotta have more of it. This movie was everything I could have wished for and more. It was so amazing. Chills the entire time, laughter, tears, just incredible. I need more.
What were your Mount Rushmore of moments from this film, Ryan?
Oh, there was so many. I came up with a Mount Rushmore and then a little honorable mention, maybe a carving that didn't get finished on the side. So I've got when all three Spider-Men swinging around the Statue of Liberty, posing on the statue together. That was incredible. When Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man catches MJ falling off the Statue of Liberty, and then Ned getting floated to the base of the statue.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That was great.
Thanks, Cape.
Thanks, Mr. Cape, sir.
When Ned opens the portals, and that's how Andrew and Toby make it into the MCU officially. That was awesome. And then just the scene of the villains in the dungeon at the Sanctum Sanctorum, just the humor in that, the information we get out of that was awesome. And then my honorable mention is just seeing Madison Square Garden being a part of the MCU. As being a big Ranger fan, love that place. So,
are you from New York?
It's the place where you got shut up. That's the place where you got engaged on the ice at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty important too, huh?
I guess that's important. That's pretty great stuff. This 2-hour podcast has flown by, but we are not done yet. We get into the post-credit scene. Tom Hardy is hanging out in his Golden State Warriors t-shirt, drunk as can be, having a discussion with Danny Rojas. Football is life. Venom is life. Anthony, I'm going to go to you first on this. Are you cool with the fact that Venom had absolutely nothing to do with this film?
I am. Yeah, I think he would have been kind of shoehorned into it. And especially because he's acting like he has no idea where he's at, acting like he has no idea what he's doing. Because it seems like, Eddie Brock doesn't know, but Venom knows, and they're not on the same page. And I feel like if we would have had to see them get on the same page, it would have just it would have made things too clunky.
Yeah, I agree. Alex, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I know the Spider-Man movies have aged really well, but I'm very confident in saying that I don't really like the Venom movies, and I don't think that's going to change at all. And so him not being in there was great. Him coming in and then leaving was even better. In my head canon, I almost think that during Carnage, Kevin was like, "Wait, what did you just do?" When he did that thing, he's like, "Okay, yeah, let me do one. Hold my beer." And then he, does that, and he's like, "All right, get out, but we're gonna keep the Venom bit." So I yes.
So, Alex, can you explain for those that may not understand, how did Venom end up in this universe? He didn't go to New York because he was in Mexico at the time, so he never really knew what to do. He was nothing. The whole film takes place. Doctor Strange says he was over the Grand Canyon for 12 hours. So, the whole film takes place over about 18 hours, maybe a whole day. How did Venom end up there? Do you have an explanation for that?
Yeah, I think, again, it probably is convoluted from Sony's perspective, but as far as I've pieced together, Venom's part of a hive mind. There's a million other Venom type symbiotes out there that are all connected and communicate to each other at all times. And so someone has communicated with Spider-Man, and he knew who Spider-Man was when he saw him on the TV screen in Carnage. Eddie has no idea who it is, but Venom probably does. And so that's why he got pulled through. And same thing, I think that the symbiote itself will probably end up in New York, because that was his last wish, was like, maybe we should go to New York and talk to Spider-Man. So that's how I took it.
Was anyone hoping to see Topher Grace sitting in the bar stool next to
Eddie? Should have been the bartender.
Should have been that would have been bad. No, you can't replace Danny Rojas. Ryan, what about Venom? I don't know if you even saw Let There Be Carnage. Did you know anything that was going on here? Were you cool with how they treated it?
Yeah, I didn't see Venom Let There Be Carnage, but I did see the post-credit scene. It appeared on TikTok. It appeared on Twitter. Yeah, I think I said this in the Hawkeye episode 4 recap. When on my wish list, I was hoping he didn't show up in this movie, and I kind of got my wish that he didn't show up in the main film. It was only a mid-credit scene. I'm fine with it. I'm happy with it. He won't be playing in the MCU sandbox, at least not this iteration of Venom. So I'm totally cool with it. But it was awesome to see
the symbiote seems here to play, which is kind of, if they have to, like if they get the opportunity, which I'm completely fine with.
Yeah, the symbiote is fine. I'm totally fine if there's a different iteration of Venom that's controlled by the MCU, or if it ends up becoming like the Spider-Man symbiote. That's fine with me as well. Just did not want the Sony version of Venom in this universe.
Maybe it hitches a ride to AFC Richmond. Before we move on to talking about Multiverse of Madness, Anthony, we will say thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Take care. Say hi to your new daughter, Madison, for us.
Hopefully she's asleep.
So let's get into Multiverse of Madness. Ryan sticks with us. Alex, let's go to you first. We've talked a little bit about Multiverse of Madness. It looks straight out of What If. The city is on its side. It is dissipating into black abyss. What the heck is going on here?
I have no idea, and I love that. It's the next MCU movie that we get to see, and we only have to wait another, 6 months or so, which is not bad at all in real time. But yeah, super exciting. I love who we're getting in this. We get the amazing Elizabeth Olsen, but we also get, I believe her name is Xochitl Gomez as America Chavez.
Sochi I think is how it's pronounced.
Okay, and so she was fantastic in the little bits that we saw of her. I just like that she's a part of it. So I don't know how she'll fit in, but it just made so much sense. And then all the what if call outs were great. This is the first movie that it seems like where they're directly kind of calling out the shows in a sense. I mean, they kind of do, I think, in some of the other ones, maybe in Shang-Chi, but definitely in this movie. So no, I'd said it right after, we haven't gotten that since Captain America First Avenger, where you get a teaser at the end for the literal next movie that's coming out in theaters. So that was it was so cool. And we needed that, especially after you got no Peter or Spider-Man will return. It was really nice to get some hope that Doctor Strange will be back.
Yeah, Mordo's dreads, man. I am here
for yes.
Mordo's dreads. He looks awesome. I did not forget. We are going to get into it right now before we go to Ryan on Multiverse of Madness. Do you like my Tom Holland shirt? Do you want your own Tom Holland shirt? The offer is on the table. If you want it to be Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire instead of Tom Holland, that offer is out there. It does exist. Put in the comments right now who your favorite Spider-Man was from this film. Peter 1, Tom Holland. Peter 2, Tobey Maguire. Or Peter 3, Andrew Garfield. Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, or Andrew Garfield. Who is your favorite Spider-Man? Put it in the comments. Put it in there as much as you possibly can. And then Ryan is going to help us pick a number to determine who wins this shirt. and we will go to Ryan on Multiverse of Madness. Ryan, what did you make of this trailer? Anything?
Oh, I'm so excited. This is my most anticipated movie of Phase 4.
To answer Stephanie's question, from this film, who was your favorite Spider-Man? Not who is your favorite Spider-Man, but who was your favorite Spider-Man in this film?
Yeah, so this is my most anticipated movie. I'm really, really excited for it. It's going to be an awesome team-up cast of Elizabeth Olsen, Xochitl Gomez, Benedict Cumberbatch, Wong, and Mordo, and everybody. And, you know, it's a shame Anthony couldn't stick around because we know What If is his favorite show on Disney Plus. So it matters. What If finally matters.
That show's garbage.
Pick him. Get him out of here.
But it's cool to see that What If matters. It's cool to see that WandaVision is going to have an impact on the show. I'm really, really excited for what we're going to get and the craziness that Sam Raimi is going to bring to this film.
My favorite part of the trailer is everybody, when WandaVision was going, like, Doctor Strange has to show up. Doctor Strange has to show up. And then he does. And she says, I've been expecting you. Listen, like, I heard a lot of people and I'm sorry. He's like, I'm not even here to talk about Westview. Let's move on here. I've got bigger fish to fry here. Her costume looks even better on the big screen. That's the first time we've seen it on the big screen. I don't know what is coming from this film. People are talking about a shield somewhere that Captain Carter could potentially make an appearance in this film. Did either of you see a shield in this? I don't think it was a shield. I think it was America Chavez.
It came because, and I won't name any names, but I did have the absolute pleasure of going to see this movie with one of the weirdos that has been on here. And they did mention that too, that, oh, you know, that was Captain Carter. But it was this shot where America was kind of moving forward and you just see the back of her jacket.
Her jean jacket.
So okay. No, there's no Captain Carter call on this. Hey, if she's in it, amazing. Maybe this is the movie she gets to come into the live action universe. But I don't think they hinted at it at all in the trailer.
But yeah, that star, that for me was absolutely the back of America Chavez.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Alex, please let our audience know who America Chavez is, what she can do, if that's even possible to answer, because it's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know what they're going to do with her in this movie. So she's a very new character. She's been around for, like, I don't know, maybe less than 10 years for sure. I just read a recent miniseries where they kind of retconned what her origin is. And so with that retcon in mind, she is the daughter of, she has two moms, and they were both scientists. And she has like some, she has a disease, basically. And so she, and I guess she even has a younger sister too in the series, but they got taken to a scientist who was like, I can experiment on them to cure them of, I wish I remember, I think it wasn't Graves, but it was some disease. And so part of that, she got her powers, and her biggest power is that she can basically punch through universes. So it's really cool in the comics, you know, that giant star kind of shows up and she cracks through it and she's into a different universe. And so she's also super strong, super fast, you know, all the classic, you know, she's a really powerful type of character. Like, I would say maybe not as much as Captain Marvel, but really close up there. But her big thing is that she can travel through different universes.
That's awesome. I don't even know how that's going to look. Just them floating through the multiverse in the purple, looking very much out of Loki. The continuity's there when it comes to the multiverse, and it was in this film, but them in like that submarine door looking thing with them just looking out into the abyss. Rachel McAdams is getting married to Stephen Strange at some point. So, I mean, Dr. Palmer is still around.
Yeah.
She's getting married to somebody. He looks like he's at the altar. Like,
I thought it looked like he was in a pew.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. He was in a pew.
Really? Well, I guess seeing this film 4 times may not have been enough. I guess I got to go back. But Ryan, anything else from Multiverse of Madness? Anything else from this film that really stood out to you that you want to make sure gets a call out?
For Multiverse of Madness, I really thought it was awesome that we got to see a little glimpse of what we believe to be Doctor Strange Supreme, straight out of What If. And that may not be the only Doctor Strange we see. If it's multiverse, we may get multiple Doctor Stranges converging, fighting each other, and that would be unreal.
I wanted to put on my tinfoil hat and say we never saw Dark Doctor Strange talking to actual Doctor Strange. They're never officially in the same room together. However, I would assume that they're confronting each other, Parent Trap style, Lindsay Lohan, but you just never know. Ryan, please help us pick a winner of the shirt by picking a number of 1 through 50. 50.
I'll pick number 18.
18. Peyton Manning's number. Good choice. Mark's going to let us know who number 18 comment was. And if they chose Tobey Maguire, then they forfeit the prize. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody has their own favorite Spider-Man, but Andrew Garfield was so great in this film. And for me, Tom Holland is the absolute number one. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was awesome.
Yeah, see you, Ryan.
Alex, we did it. I don't know how well we did it. I think there's a ton of stuff that we could definitely. Jalen is the winner. Jalen wins the Tom Holland or Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield shirt. Jalen, congratulations for winning your shirt. We will get in touch with you very soon. Alex, I know there's a ton that we did not touch. We're going to be able to talk way more about this film in the coming weeks and months. Any last thoughts that you have on Spider-Man No Way Home?
A couple things. I saw someone in the comments said, "What's the symbolism behind the shield on the Statue of Liberty?" Fantastic question. I would think that's the only Avenger symbol you could put on top of the statue, but also kind of indicates that protection, that defending of America. Captain America's from New York, all of that. The other thing was, I thought for a minute that the people shoveling, the gal who was shoveling in the sanctum, was Zelma Stanton from the comics, but they just called them like assistant 1 and 2 or something like that. So I don't know. But no, this movie, I threw this movie up very high on my list. Obviously, I need more rewatches, but I put it in front of Infinity War, and I don't know. So it's sitting between that and Endgame, and I'm still trying to struggle with that. I hate ranking things, but just this movie is everything that I love about Spider-Man and was the absolute perfect thing given to us at the absolute perfect time.
For me, it's what this film did for the Spider-Man saga is what Endgame did for the MCU Infinity Saga. For me, I love the MCU so much. Like, I don't know if anything will ever be able to top Endgame, but it's cheating because it's 22 films in one. This is 7 films, 8 films in one. It's just unbelievable. They walked a perfect line. Congratulations to John Watts. We now know why you got Fantastic Four sight unseen from the rest of us. You made a brilliant, brilliant film through a pandemic and everything. There were leaks. If you were a quote unquote good fan and you tried to do everything you could to go into this film unspoiled, I think you had the time of your life. And that's really all that we can ever ask for from a film that was taking on such a drastic, steep challenge. Congratulations to Justin Grant, and thank you to Justin Grant for his efforts in helping us get this stream out to as many people as possible throughout the week. Congratulations to Stephanie Wyatt on their pin wins, and then congratulations to Jalen. We will talk more very shortly on when and how we will send your shirt. Thank you so much, everybody. Alex, for Comics and Cinema, we will see you at the movies, and for us, for the children.
Thank you.